Hello everyone. So this is the video for AWS Certified Cloud Practitioner exam questions. So we will be covering the questions related to this topic. If you check the exam guide of the this certification exam, you can find this topic. So the domain security and compliance, in which we have understand the AWS Shared Responsibility Model, where um, you can understand different responsibilities as a user, as a customer, and how AWS shares all the responsibility like physical or infrastructure based things, and how as a user what are your responsibilities like handling IAM users and security based things. So let's check some questions. Which of the following is AWS responsible for in the shared responsibility model? So the answer is managing physical security of data centers, because other things, if you check, creating IAM policies for user roles, that's your responsibility. How and whom you provide this access as a IAM user, and other options like installing software updates and managing database schema in Amazon RDS, that's customer's responsibility. So here you can see the answer. Next question is, which responsibility shifts to AWS when using Amazon RDS instead of hosting a database on Amazon EC2? So the answer is database patching and backups. Okay. So if you are using RDS, then database patching and backups will be handled by Amazon AWS. Which of the following is the customer not responsible for when using AWS Lambda? So you will be responsible for your application code, IAM permissions, and code level security, and you will not be responsible for OS patching. AWS will handle it. You are using Amazon EC2. Which of the following is your responsibility? So physical security is not your concern. Applying security patches to the OS, yes, that's what you have uh, handle, or you'll be responsible for that. Controlling access to the data center, that's not your responsibility. Also ensuring the network across AWS regions, that's not your responsibility. A company stores data in an S3 bucket. Who is responsible for setting up the bucket policy to prevent public access? That's your responsibility as a customer, because as a customer, you will be adding the bucket policy and you will be providing all the access that who can access through your bucket policy. So next question is, in the shared responsibility model, which of the following is considered a shared responsibility? Physical or infrastructure based anything is will be it will be handled by AWS. Second is data encryption. So data encryption will be shared by both the customer and the AWS. IAM user creation will be handled by user only. I mean customer. And server hardware lifecycle management, so it's hardware, everything infrastructure based things will be handled by AWS. Next question is, you are using Amazon S3 with default settings. Who is responsible if sensitive data becomes publicly accessible due to a misconfigured policy? So as we discussed, the policy is added by a customer, so it's their responsibility to handle it. And if it is misconfigured by mistake, then it's your responsibility. Which AWS service shifts the most operational and security responsibilities away from the customer? So the answer is AWS Lambda. In case of AWS EC2 RDS S3, it's not that much, but in case of AWS Lambda, most of the things are handled by AWS. You just have to run the code. It's also a serverless service, and everything, most of the things are handled by AWS in case of AWS Lambda. Next question is, in the shared responsibility model, who is responsible for auditing API activities in the AWS account using CloudTrail? So the answer is the customer. AWS provides this service, but as a customer, it's your responsibility to check the activities by different users, and monitoring the different resources used by any IAM user. This is the table of different responsibilities For data center physical security, AWS is responsible. For hosting infrastructure, it's AWS. OS and patch management, EC2. In case of that, customer is responsible, and OS and patch management, RDS and Lambda, it's AWS. Okay, AWS will handle. Application code security. So as we discussed that, suppose you are using Lambda and you are adding any code as a function, as a Lambda function, then it's your responsibility that it's secure. And IAM policies and access control, that's your responsibility, that whom you are giving access as an IAM user and what they are using. Data classification and labeling, in this case, it is shared. And in case of network configuration, whatever VPC, security groups, whatever you are adding in your EC2 or anything, it's the customer responsibility. Then client and server side encryption, it's also shared that how encryption is done. Next is who is responsible for encrypting and managing data encryption in Amazon S3 when using server side encryption when with customer provided keys. A company stores sensitive documents in an Amazon S3 bucket. They decided to use server-side encryption with customer-provided encryption keys to protect the data at rest. They want to retain full control of the encryption keys without relying on AWS key management system. So here, everything related to the question is, under this configuration, who is responsible for managing and securing the encryption keys, including rotation, protection, and availability? So the answer will be customer. And here we are talking about SSEC. So customer will be responsible for all the things related to it. Here's explanation of that. Question. When using SSEC server-side encryption with customer-provided keys in Amazon S3 encryption process, AWS performs the actual encryption and decryption of the object on the server side using the key. So AWS will be responsible for the encryption decryption, but for the key, customer is responsible. The customer is entirely responsible for generating strong encryption keys, storing them securely, rotating them regularly, making them available during get or put requests. So for the keys, customer is responsible. Okay. So here question is about securing the encryption key. So answer will be customer. Um, but if it was related to data and encryption, then it would be answered as both. AWS does not store the customer provided keys. If the key is lost or not provided, then object cannot be decrypted and it would be permanently inaccessible. And in case of customer provided keys, it's maximum controlled by a customer. A company is deploying a web application on Amazon EC2 instances within a VPC. Who is responsible? As we discussed for security, like VPC, security groups or ACLs, everything is handled by customer. An organization uses Amazon RDS for their database. Who is responsible for managing database credentials and rotating them securely? So the answer is customer. So while AWS manages the infrastructure and patching for RDS, customer is responsible for database users, password and access control policies. So here we are talking about database credentials and rotating them securely. Which of the following security responsibilities does AWS handle for Amazon S3? So the answer is protecting against physical drive failure. Okay, so other things are done by customer. Managing encryption keys with SSEC, setting public access block, creating bucket policies. It's all handled. It all handled by customer. Okay. Next question. Who is responsible for ensuring compliance with regulatory standards when using AWS services? Answer is customer. So these regulatory standards are related to different countries, like GDPR is, I guess, related to European policy, something. So it's your responsibility that you follow all the rules and regulations. A startup is using AWS Lambda and Amazon API Gateway to build a serverless web API. Who is responsible for securing the API endpoints? So it's your responsibility that you secure the endpoint of the product or the project you are working on or creating something using Lambda and API Gateway. It is a serverless web API, and you have to manage it. The in case of Lambda, infrastructure and everything is managed by AWS, most of the things. Here is the encryption table. you can understand everything that there are these are the methods in the left side: SSC S3, SSC KMS, SSCC client side. So SSCC, we as we discussed, it is related to customer, and then another mm, table headers are who manages key and AWS stores the key. What are the use cases for SSC S3? AWS manages the keys and it also stores it, and it manages keys automatically. In the case of KMS, the KMS is controlled by customer. Okay, so AWS does stores the key, but customer have the control over AWS KMS. In case of SSEC, customer is solely responsible for managing the key. AWS does not store the key, and if it is gone, then it's your responsibility. And next is client side. So if you are encrypting your data or anything, then it's your responsibility, and you can do the encryption and decryption by yourself. AWS will not handle that. So that's it. Hope you find this these questions helpful, and it covers most of the questions related to this topic. If you find any interesting or tricky question related to this, please share, because I'm also preparing for that certification. So I hope that was helpful for you. Thank you. Bye.